Thank you very much for joining us to the Urban Mobility and Equity Center webinar series. This is part 2 of today's webinar of HBCU Edge. And the second part is called Getting Grant Funding. And we have an amazing panelist in here. I can introduce them, and then I will ask some questions, and we will discuss that. And if the attendee have any questions, please put it on Q&A, and I will read it, and the panelists will answer that. Our 4 amazing panelists. The first one is Ms. Dawn Tucker-Thomas. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Dawn Tucker-Thomas. I'm a university grants manager with the University Transportation Centers program, which is housed in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology with the U.S. Department of Transportation. I've been in the transportation industry for almost 30 years, a graduate of 2 HBCUs, Hampton University and Morgan State University, and did my undergraduate studies in airway science and my graduate studies at Morgan in transportation. I also have a law degree as well.
Yes, and we are very proud to have alumni like Dawn. Our second panel is Carol DeLion.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Carol DeLion. I work at the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration. I'm the Deputy Director for TSMO and CATS. Really, it covers technology and innovation in transportation operations. I have a background in transportation planning. I did my bachelor's and master's at the University of Maryland, College Park. So not Morgan, sorry, but still at least sort of local. I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you guys about some opportunities for funding.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carol. Yes, you may not be from Morgan, but we love you and we always work with you, and we're happy to have you here. Thank you. I'm sorry, before I go to the next one, one of our panelists cannot have his camera on, Mr. Leo. Ms. Jones, can you add him as a panelist, please? And our next panelist is Mr. Taft Kelly. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's be my pleasure. My name is Taft Kelly. I'm the Regional Field Administrator for the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration under the United States Department of Transportation. I'm a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University and Morgan State University in a degree in transportation. So what we do is regulate the trucking industry and the motor coach industry and drivers, and work closely with helping facilitate a successful supply chain. So I'm excited about this opportunity to share with you about potential opportunities with research and funding in the field of commercial motor vehicle safety. And I'm excited about today.
Thank you very much. And we are so happy to have you here. And the last but not the least is Mr. Leo San Roman. I don't know if you're able to turn on your camera or not yet.
I asked him to log out and log back in because I don't see him showing up as a panelist in my screen.
It was in the last minute change because Ms. Shelby could not join and she sent a replacement. That's why. Okay. Okay, he's back in.
Ms. Jones, it looks like he's showing up as an attendee and needs to be upgraded to a panelist.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, he should be good to go now.
Mr. San Roman?
There you go. Sorry about that. Sorry for those technology challenges, but good morning, everyone. My name is Leonardo San Roman. And I'm the manager of the Procurement Assistance Division in the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, OSDBU, and DOT. I'm representing today our director, Shelby M. Scales. Unfortunately, she had another commitment that she had to go, and she asked me to join this session with my friends, Taft Kelly, Don Tucker, and my new friend, Carol. I've been with OSDBU for 15 years. I am not a graduate from an HBCU, but I went to Hispanic Serving Institution, University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez. I have a degree in physics and chemistry, but then I shifted gears and I went to federal contracting a few years ago. Our office helps small businesses to compete on performing DOT contracts. And also we have a big interest to help HBCUs and MSIs to also compete in contract opportunities within the department. So we are here to support you on those efforts. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all four panelists. And so I'm going to start the first question. Where to find and apply for grants, especially transportation-related grants?
I can start off, for the University Transportation Centers program, we use a system called grants.gov to post our notices of funding opportunity. And you can search for the University Transportation Centers grant by putting in our CFDA number, which is 20.701. Another location is you can find it, the link to grants.gov when we do go in and post solicitations on our website as well.
Thank you.
I could add a little bit on state grants and funding opportunities. So we have probably a few different avenues for folks who are interested in finding funding. The first one right now, actually, the Maryland Highway Safety Office has a funding opportunity out. So the Maryland Highway Safety Office is a group that helps to find strategies to reduce fatalities and injuries on our roadways, supports this strategic highway safety plan, and it requires every year to put out a request for ideas and projects. So every year you would have that opportunity to submit to the MHSO for safety type applications. There is also trying to think a little bit creatively on where to find funding. There are opportunities with agencies across the state like the Energy Administration or even Department of Planning and others. So don't believe that transportation is only Department of Transportation. Transportation has historically forever impacted how we move people. So anything that affects people, we could find funding to make that happen. At MDOT, we internally have a mechanism to talk through research opportunities with Dr. Jihani and others, other state universities. So that is another mechanism to find some funding.
If I could just add to my colleague's comment about state agencies, if you have these types of relationships and partnerships, for instance, in commercial motor vehicle safety, with our law enforcement partners there, either in Maryland, that'll be the state highway, and also the port law enforcement officials. We give grants, we give awards directly to them, and you can develop that relationship, and they may be able to sub-grant awards for research and things such as that for you. So going through your local agencies or your lead agencies within the state is also an opportunity for you.
Yes, I just wanted to add a little bit to what Taft and Don mentioned. So grants.gov is a central location for all grant opportunities in federal government. All agencies are required to post those opportunities in this portal. And actually our office has 3 active NOFOs right now. However, these NOFOs are not for research. So we have a network of small business transportation resource centers that we provide technical assistance to small businesses across the country. We are looking for 3 new partners to join our program. So we specifically are looking for HBCUs, MSIs, trade associations, chambers of commerce. So Dr. Jehani, I will send those links to you so you can share with your with this group after our session today.
Thank you. That would be great. So the second question is kind of related, and I think you all touched upon it, but opportunities for HBCUs. Is there extra opportunities for HBCUs?
All right, I'm gonna, sorry, Don, go ahead.
Go ahead, Leon.
So I'm gonna talk about the procurement side. We have a procurement forecast that we post all procurement opportunities over $250,000. That's a snapshot of what we plan to buy throughout the year, and it's the best place for HBCUs to look for contract opportunities. Also, SAM.gov, we are required to post all solicitations in SAM.gov, and it's a great source for HBCUs for look for contract opportunities beyond the grants world. Something that I wanted to tell you is it's important for HBCUs to do their homework to find those agencies, especially for in DOT, that has opportunities within the research areas of these schools. Because one area in procurement that we're promoting is a broad agency announcement. That is a different way to do contracting, which they do the market research first on specific topics that the agency is looking for. We are pushing for more HBCU participation on these opportunities. So if any of the attendees of this session would like to know more about that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to set aside some time to explain how the broad agency announcement process works, and I help them with that. Done?
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to focus on 3 opportunities within the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology. And the first is my very own program, the University Transportation Centers program, which many of universities that are involved with surface transportation research are very familiar with. This program started in the late 80s, originally comprising of 10 universities. It's been reauthorized underneath various surface transportation, pieces of surface transportation legislation, with the latest being the FAST Act. The purpose of the program is to advance US technology and expertise, provide critical transportation knowledge base outside of the US Department of Transportation, as well as address critical workforce needs, educating the next generation of transportation professionals. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act reauthorized this program. Universities were in the process of drafting the notice of funding opportunity as we speak. So I'm limited on some of the information that I could provide, but the legislation did state that it authorizes $80 million each year for the next 5 years for up to 35 competitive grants. So that's one of the programs that we strongly encourage the HBCUs to consider applying for. The legislation does also encourage HBCUs to apply for grants within the UTC program. Those HBCUs that have a demonstrated transportation experience. There's another program within my organization. It's called Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation Grants. This is a $1 billion program. It's a new competitive grant program that's going to be supporting states local and tribal governments in conducting demonstration projects to advance smart cities and or community technologies and systems. The third program that I wanted to speak about is the Open Research Initiative. This is a $250 million program, and it's going to initially start out as a pilot program. And this program is also going to support states, local governments, universities, nonprofit organizations, and so on, by enabling them to submit unsolicited research proposals addressing USDOT's unmet research needs. So we are still operating underneath a continuing resolution, and we are waiting for funding for these programs. And once the funding is received and once Congress approves a budget, we will be able to move forward. One thing to note too, and I will put this in the chat, the bipartisan infrastructure law has various other programs and other operating administrations. The UTC's program, we have our centers of excellence, and that focuses on aviation research and technology. And then you also have other various programs within the Federal Transit Administration, Federal Railroad, Federal Highway, grant programs that you will be able to tap into. Again, I will provide some links in the chat that you can connect to and seek out additional information. As Leo mentioned, all of the grants, we have to post them on grants.gov. So that's going to be your one-stop shop to go in and search for research grant opportunities with the Department of Transportation. Also, please remember too that you have the Department of Energy, where USDOT has partnered with in a memorandum of understanding focusing on the electric vehicle charging stations, as well as the National Science Foundation is also another opportunity where the university should focus on. And thank you, Carol, for bringing that up earlier. Thank you.
I would just like to add maybe a practical application of a particular grantee submission is to really know your mission or know the mission of the agency in which you apply for those grants. For instance, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration mission is to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving large trucks and buses. And so this type of data-driven analysis or research that you can do to help facilitate the reduction of crashes to get to the National Roadway Safety Strategy of Zero Fatalities is, I would always encourage that. We have several grant programs within the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration that is applicable, I believe is applicable to a university research. Those are our high priority grants, which is just aimed at looking at all areas or identifying high risk areas where we can look at reducing crashes involving commercial motor vehicles, things such as looking at the deployment of collision avoidance devices in large trucks and buses, looking at driver safety, driver impairment, things of that sort, autonomous vehicles, really taking emerging issues such as marijuana use and how that impairment, potential impairment leads to reduced safety in commercial motor vehicle operation. And just general, I would encourage folks to generally know the direction that your particular grantee or grantor and the issues surrounding that particular agency is always, I believe, is helpful for us. And also we have research grants within FMCSA, such as looking at technology transfer, the cause of accidents or improving safety and efficiency in the industry in which we regulate. And just lastly, as you know, Executive Order 13985 is about advancing racial equity in support of underserved communities throughout the federal government. So HBCUs and minority serving institutions and HSIs are certainly a target of this administration to make sure they are more engaged and involved in our program.
And can I touch on something that's really important, Dr. Jahani, with regards to the University Transportation Centers program? The legislation contained language with regards to minority serving institutions. And they define minority institutions as an institution of higher education whose enrollment of a single minority or a combination of minorities exceeds 50% of the total enrollment. So please keep that in mind. I know all of the HBCUs, and like Leo, he went to the University of Puerto Rico, those are all designated as minority institutions, but we also have other universities that are seeking to qualify as a minority institution. So again, when we're dealing with this, we're looking at that definition of enrollment of 50% or more. And I can put the definition in the chat box if you would like to.
Thank you for letting us know. Yes.
And I would just like to add, Dr. Jahani, is that collaboration with other universities or state or local governments that receive federal funding may be an opportunity for Morgan as well for Morgan faculty.
Yes.
I was going to reinforce something that Taft just said. The themes that the USDOT are looking at now are very different, I'd say, than previous administrations, and they do change by administration. So if you're lucky to have the same one for the 8 years, then the programs aren't too different. But one thing that has shifted is this new administration definitely has a new vision. And so the programs that you can apply to will have changed a little bit. And I think actually Morgan State's very well positioned to apply to these grants. There's a stronger focus on equity, on the need to just address people rather than vehicles, for example. So there's definitely an opportunity here to sort of reframe some of your ideas. If you have a research theme that you're looking after, see how you can make it fit within that theme that the USDOT is looking at. Also recognize that the programs tend to lean on whether or not there is a plan. So if we look at a long-term plan, if we look at the strategic highway safety plan, if we look at all these plans, if you can say, hey, I'm supporting an action item from one of these plans, you're more likely to get that momentum to keep moving forward. If you're coming out completely out from the left side, it's a little bit more difficult to justify why that one program is more important than all these other programs, which have significant stakeholder input to develop. So look at those from Maryland or nationally, even where does Maryland want to go? There's a lot of plans. And see if you can support them and make those actions a reality.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to add something to what Carol just mentioned. So there's a White House initiative on HBCUs, and all federal agencies have to put together a plan. And there are some areas that we touch upon. One is federal contracting to increase contract opportunities with HBCUs. Grant opportunities to HBCUs as well, and capacity building. So all federal agencies have put together strong plans to ensure that they work with HBCUs and MSIs on increase in many areas, but contracting, grants management, and capacity building are 3 areas that are very important in these annual plans.
And can I make a comment also to piggyback on what Leo and Carol just mentioned? I cannot discuss the upcoming UTC grant competition, but what I can talk about is the past competition underneath the FAST Act. And, that was a very competitive grant competition, we had received 212 applications. And that's the largest number of applications that we ever received in the history of the program. And I just wanted to let the universities know that it's very important that when you do apply for these grants, to definitely pay attention to the detail that's in the notice of funding opportunity in terms of the number of pages, the font size, in terms of the research priorities, as Carol was just mentioning. I did not want to go into detail, but I did provide the website that you can see with the bipartisan infrastructure law and some of the research priorities. And you can go on my organization's website, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology, to get a glimpse of some of the activity that's going on within the department. That research component is very key, because not only are you helping to carry out a national research agenda, you're also helping to carry out the research agenda of your region and within your state and local communities as well, addressing some of the transportation issues and problems.
Great tips, thank you. And the next question is tips and tricks.
Dawn set it up perfectly. She was like, this is the perfect segue into that question. There's a lot of tips and tricks, and I'm going to try and provide as much as I can, because I know it's hard for the USDOT, like Dawn just said, she can't tell you what's coming up. But it's very, very, very important that you look at the criteria in those grants. One of the things we get sometimes is people are like, well, why don't you just have templates? And it's like, that you can't do that. The grants come in with very specific criteria that you have to meet. And you have to be very careful that you're following that. And I can't reiterate this enough, because I've seen it where sometimes it's like, this should be 5 pages and someone sends us 20 pages. Like, it was very clear, please pay attention. So that's the number one trick, like just pay attention to that criteria. A second thing to think about, and this is more of a just situational awareness for you all, we don't necessarily know, we at the state or local level, we don't necessarily know exactly when those grants come out. So it's very hard to say, we're ready to go whenever it drops. We need to be proactive, but it's hard for us to just say, we're gonna do it. So be ready to move fast, because that's what happens. It drops, you have about 30, maybe 60 days to do this. And it can be a bit of a hellish time to get it out, but that's what you need to remind yourself of. That's the mentality you're going to come into it when the grant drops and you're going after it. The other piece about making sure that you are following national themes and programs, like that's another really big one. Don't go on completely left field when everyone's talking about equity and resiliency. Doing something else is just probably not going to go for it. The other piece, Taft brought this up, keep a good relationship with those stakeholders, understand, because that will help you with situational awareness. Keep a good relationship with your motor carriers, your planning, even your outreach, all that, because then you know what the pulse of everything is, and that'll help you move your program forward. The other piece of sort of tips and tricks that I want to highlight, so a lot of the grants have to go through the state DOT, specifically for USDOT grants. If you're talking DOE, that's different, but just I'm talking about DOT grants. And that means that either you're submitting as you, the applicant, or you're submitting under the Maryland DOT. If you're submitting as under the MDOT DOT, like we're partners and we're working together, we need to have agreements in place or something already working, because otherwise it's very hard to submit and say, hey, we don't actually have agreements in place, we don't have contracts, we don't have anything. The USDOT will look at that and say, so you're not ready to go. And then they may not want to pursue that. It's a little bit different with research, but just think about that when you want to submit a project. You can't just come cold and say, we want to have $2 million worth of contract authority and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that's not going to work. We need that to be already in place to be able to move forward. And then obviously Maryland has the Board of Public Works, which we have to abide by, even with the US requirements. Like that's a separate piece that needs to be done as well before you can submit. If you're submitting as a separate entity, like you're a subrecipient, and MDOT is not involved at all. All we're doing is giving you the money. That's good, that's fine, not a problem. Just know that you cannot spend that money, especially if it's a match, before you actually get the grant. I'm going to reiterate this like as many times as possible because it's happened multiple times where someone like a university or local jurisdiction submits a grant, they get awarded, but by the way, they've already spent their match to like a year back. And then it's like, well, you weren't supposed to. You weren't supposed to spend your match and then get federal dollars. That's not how that works. You have to hold that project until you get a yes or a no. And then once you get the federal clearance, you can start moving with the project forward. I'll pause there. I don't know if there's other pieces that some things that could be said at the USDOT level.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Don. I was gonna say you are the subject matter expert on this from the UTC program, so please go ahead. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Looking at, and I'm not speaking about the UTC grant program now, I'm speaking about USDOT research activity, okay? When writing your proposal, again, pay attention to what's the activity that's going on, what's contained in the bipartisan infrastructure law. When it deals with research, we're looking for universities to produce something that you can deploy into the field that's going to, say, for instance, increase vehicular safety or increase the standards for vehicular safety. We're looking for solutions to address climate change priorities, which is very key within this administration, as well as approaches to addressing equity. As you know, again, that's another administrative priority with this president, as well as with the Secretary of Transportation. You know, mobility solutions, the first and last mile are key things, and accessibility, you know, working with those individuals, the community, this disabled community that are having problems getting, you know, transportation from point A to point B, and also looking into those investments that would help economically strengthen and increase global competitiveness within the U.S. Department of Transportation and for the nation as a whole. So again, keeping that in mind, and then we all saw what happened not too long ago with our supply chain system. So I'm not sure if Tap wants to piggyback on that, because that's a good segue for him in dealing with the logistics of what just happened. These are real world situations that we're trying to address nationally. And it's going to take a universe, you know, the university community to come together as a whole and brainstorm and come up with solutions. So again, partnering with other universities in these grant competitions is going to be key, because that's only going to strengthen your proposal.
You're muted. Mr. Taft,
Taft, you're muted.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
You seem to have lost your audio, Taft.
We cannot hear you, Taft.
No.
Well, I'll just say while Taft is trying to get his audio straight, dealing with the supply chain system, you know, we have the Port of Long Beach. Are you there, Taft? Were you able to? Okay, yeah, we lost his audio. Dealing with the supply chain issues at the Port of Long Beach, as you could tell, we had hundreds of ships that were sitting there in the Pacific Ocean, and then not enough truck drivers. And this is, again, right going into Taft's in his alley. So, you know, the pandemic is not helping the situation. We have, you know, a shortage of tractor trailer drivers that are out on the roadway today. and we need the cargo to get moved. So again, these supply chains, these logistical issues, training the truck drivers is also going to be key in this whole process, and creating certification programs, not just within for minorities, but we're also looking to, hey, we have the Native American community as well. And what can we do to train that community to be able to bring cargo in and out of the reservations? So I'm not sure if Taft was able to get his audio. I don't think he can. So.
Taft, are you back? No.
Mm.
Probably you should sign out and log back in. Right, that's gonna help you. So I just wanted to add a couple of things. I want to echo what Cal mentioned before, and Don, it's extremely important that you pay attention to all the details in the grant proposal, because if they say 5 pages, don't send 6 pages, because that is not go out. If it says font size 12, it's font size 12. You need to follow the instructions in the proposal to the point. Pay special attention at the matching contribution that you have for the specific grants, and clearly explain how does the school plan to provide that matching contribution. Remember, you're going to be competing with other schools, and the best you explain how you're going to do that, it's going to help you and going to help the reviewer go over your proposal. Have an extra set of eyes before you click that submit button. Have another set of eyes to go over the proposal, because sometimes you're working on so many things, you work late at night, and you're missing some points that are critical to the proposal that may kick you out of the evaluation process. So that's something that you should do. On the technical part, very clear explain how would the school deliver what is required in the grant proposal and the grants, because it's going to help you a lot throughout the review process. Taft.
No, we can't hear you.
Oh, you're still muted, so we cannot hear it.
Nope, still nothing. I'm so sorry.
So Jehani, is there a phone number that he can call in?
I believe so. Let me go back to my.
I think part of the problem may be that he is in as both a panelist and an attendee.
That's a good point.
He's unmuted as a panelist, but he's muted as an attendee because they all are.
Oh,
Are you able to boot him from the attendees list if he's coming up twice?
When I looked at that and it said then he cannot re-enter. So that makes me nervous to do.
Agreed.
Dr. Jahani,
yes.
this is Richard Johnson.
Oh, yes. Hi, Mr. Richard.
And if we can't hear Taft, I can say just one thing or two about the application for the grants, if that's okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to add one thing, that these are all great points, and Taft and I have talked about this before in our office, but we always recommend that the applicants, if they don't make that cut that year or successfully, are awarded a grant, use that grant as an opportunity, as a training opportunity for the next set of applications. So you can we can't technically talk to them about that current year of award, but we can talk to them about the previous year and kind of give them, that's where we actually develop our tips and tricks for the applicants. So I always tell them, we talk to them quite frequently, they get discouraged, but we always have to tell them, just use this as a learning experience and a building block.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Make sure if you do not get the grant, make sure to ask for a debrief it always helps to talk. And sure, it's uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, we thought we meant this, you thought we meant that, and whatever. But that's still important to understand. Like, you may have said a sentence a certain way and thought that it was perfectly clear, and then the reviewer is like, that did not make sense. And so just understanding how they read the submissions and how they then rate them will help you in the long term. So don't be afraid to ask for those debriefs.
And I will piggyback on the FAST Act grant competition with the UTC program. We had some applicants that were, used to getting the grant, had normally received the grant prior competitions, and there were a couple that they did not receive, were not awarded a grant. And at their request, we did provide a debrief. And this was an in-person debrief in which I'm one of the individuals that had to debrief them, and go in and explain to them, how the reviewers rated and ranked their proposal submissions and what areas they might have been lacking in, where they could have, strengthened in order to have a better proposal with regards to the other universities that they were going up against. Normally, our universities are categorized as national, regional, or tier ones. And this particular applicant was a regional UTC, and regional UTCs focus on transportation issues and concerns within their particular region. They have to have 100% match. And again, this particular applicant was used to receiving it. However, you had another applicant that submitted a stronger proposal package, and then they ultimately were awarded the grant. We also have the national centers between the regional and the national. They do have, both of them have 100% match, and our tier ones, the match is 50%. And the tier ones are usually a little bit more narrowly focused. They might hone in on aging and disability, within driving and mobility needs. So it depends on the categories, but again, look at the research priority areas and then start tailoring and forming your teams based on what you see when the notice of funding opportunity is released.
Thank you. Mr. Taft, are you back in? No, we can't hear you still. Sorry. I sent you the a phone number to call in if you want to do that. Those are all great tips and great information. Thank you all. So the importance of collaboration and also tech transfer, if any of you want to touch upon that.
I can discuss this. As Dr. Jahani knows, all of our universities coordinate and collaborate with one another. And, in 2012, during the 2012 timeframe, we had additional funding come in. And this is the first time where we had full and open competition for the universities. And since then, under MAP 21, under the FAST Act, all of our competitions, grant competitions now are fully competitive. There are no earmarks anymore. So, what we do encourage is for the universities to come together who may not ordinarily work with one another. There might be a university on the East Coast, an HBCU, that might have a similar research experience or expertise with a university on the West Coast. We also would like to have the universities share their ideas and their information with one another. And by doing so, you're diversifying the talents and the research capabilities of the 2 or 3 or 4 universities that are joining forces with one another. This also helps for us to limit research duplication. That's a big issue, in terms of not duplicating your research efforts, because there might be one university that's researching something that the other university is doing the same thing, and we're looking at, okay, that's a potential waste of federal funds. So we would like them to, again, join forces and then build upon that research activity. Another reason why we would like the universities to coordinate and collaborate with one another is gaining access to skill sets of a person or group. So say, for instance, University X might have a professor or researcher that's skilled in bridge scouring. Well, University Y that might be applying as a lead, might not have that expertise, but this is something, hypothetically, this might be a research priority that they wanted to hone in on. So, that would only, again, help your proposal package. And also it's a chance to get the universities to gain an understanding of one another. I noticed within the regional UTCs, you have the 10 standard federal regions, and I would use the Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia region as an example. Ordinarily, when would these universities have an opportunity to work with one another? But because they're within a specific region, they can then pull their resources together. Some of the issues and concerns, the transportation issues and concerns in the state of Virginia, along the eastern seaboard, the coastal problems that we have, or you have rural parts of Virginia and rural parts of Pennsylvania on the western side and the north part of Pennsylvania, you might not readily have those issues and concerns for some of the universities that are located right here in the Washington, D.C. and or Baltimore region. So, pulling those universities together to work and focus on this region as a whole, that will allow them then to get to learn a little bit more, as well as share, their laboratories, their outdoor research laboratories that Virginia Tech and Penn State might have that, hypothetically, and I'm just using this as an example, that Howard University might not have, because Howard University is located, in the heart of Washington, D.C.
No, we still cannot hear you, Mr. Kelly. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Doctor, I think Dawn was just spot on her explanation, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about how collaboration is important when you do contracting. So federal contracting, HBCUs are encouraged to partner up with large businesses for opportunities that are arising from the department. So any contract opportunity over $750,000 for a large business, they have to partner up or develop a subcontracting plan. And we encourage large businesses to work with HBCUs and those opportunities that they find HBCUs are available to perform the work. And that's a great opportunity for the school to develop those relationships and expand their core competencies if they want to compete for federal contracting. Another area is the Small Business Innovation Research Program. Even though that program is for small businesses, the program allows small businesses to partner up with HBCUs to go after specific opportunities. So DOT is one of the federal agencies with the SBIR program. So if any of the participants here would like to know more about the program and when the next solicitation is coming out, they can reach out to me for assistance. Taff, you online now?
Yeah, I'm still trying.
Yes.
All right.
You're good.
Can't give in, you can't give out, and you can't give up, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
I apologize for that. But, you know, one thing that I heard the group talk about is leveraging with universities and state government. We also have to leverage with our industry partners as well. And it's nothing strengthened, I think, a proposal more than saying that not only do you have buy-in from a cross segment of the community, but you have industry support as well. So one of the opportunities I encourage you and your team there to do is to see what industry partners. I think I put in the chat. Yeah, we certainly having a supply chain issue, and not as much on the East Coast, but we have some improvements to do. But certainly out west. And is the port design? Is the current strategy of port management what it should be, and how can academic university help understand how to make the ports more effective and more efficient? You know, what are some of the challenges with the driver shortage? You know, it could be pay, yeah. You know, it could be working conditions. It could be some externalities out there, like maybe the insurance company won't insure a driver until they turn 25. So that gap between high school and that gap to the turn, really, even though we can say now we got programs, 18 to 20-year-old drivers, 21-year-old drivers can get a CDL, but can they get employment? If my insurance company won't insure any driver less than 25 and 3-year driving experience. So how can academia first bring these types of issues to the forefront and then help us develop solutions to those? You know, let's talk about a national insurance pool to help bring these drivers in there so companies won't be priced out of hiring a new driver. What does that look like? These are some of the things that I think are emerging issues. Marijuana impairment, you know, its use is being legalized. You know, sometimes maybe look the other way, but the bottom line is we need academia to understand that marijuana use is here and what is the impairment level and how do we determine that impairment level and what tools to do it along the roadside. Like we have certain tools we do with alcohol and other things. These are just right off the tree, low hanging fruit that issues and I think my colleagues really talked about. And you learn these issues and you get these issues by continuing to have the relationship with the agencies. That is so critical because I could come to you, Dr. Jahani, and cry about all the issues I'm dealing with. But what I'm really telling you in an informal way is, wow, these are things I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and I don't have the answer to them, nor can I find the answers. And that's just right for research. So that relationship that you can foster with your various federal agencies that serve your state, that serve your city, are, I think, critical in understanding what are my pressure points and what are my pain points. And also, I know on the East Coast, I like to think that we are leading the way. We are having our third CMV Safety Summit. This is our third one that's going to be this November. It would be our fourth, but during the pandemic, we didn't do it. Our sponsored university is the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and we bring in industry. We would like to bring in academia to talk about these issues about technology and trucking. And while I'm all for autonomous vehicles, the pragmatic side of TAF and the realistic side of TAF saying that's really a long way off. And what I'm dealing with today, I need collision avoiding devices to help assist younger drivers, to help assist maybe drivers that eyesight ain't as good or reflex are not as good as they used to be. And how do we expand folks to the commercial motor vehicle industry to be drivers, to be mechanics, and even the technology on some of these trucks that they have coming out. Wow, I mean, even the technical, what we used to call the mechanical skills are changing to be more, how can I say, to be more complex. And how do we train up that next generation of the quote unquote mechanic to even work on these particular type of vehicles is another issue, so that the workforce, as we all doing this to improve and engage our workforce, can be ready for the technology that is coming. As you can see, I struggle with Zoom. So you can imagine what some of the challenges going to be for our young folks, and how do we prepare them, for that. So again, I apologize for the disturbance of this great conversation, and I just look forward to working with Morgan and other universities as well. I know I got my eye on the university there with Leo, and Puerto Rico is part of my territory. I got my eye on the USVI. We working with them as well to look at how do we ensure safety in both Puerto Rico and the USVI. And I think universities can play a leading role in that.
Great points. Thank you so much, Mr. Kelly. Just a follow-up question. A couple of years ago, I wanted to do this cannabis study using our simulator through MHSO, but I was told we can't do that. Because it's not federally legal, we can't do such research. So now,
Right.
Can we do it now?
No, I was concerned when Taft brought up marijuana testing here with regards to receiving federal funds. Grant recipients are, there's a prohibition against any kind of sale, distribution, use of marijuana as a grant applicant. So I just wanted to caveat that, and that's in our governing documents as well. I do want to let you know, one time I did go and I went on a site visit, and I'm not going to name the university, and they were testing, and they were using grain alcohol to test their subjects. And I was looking at the senior executive because I was wondering, I'm like, okay, what are their testing procedures and protocols? And, grain alcohol is very high, the potency level. So I was a little concerned, but the senior executive that was with me at the time didn't say anything. But I would also connect with your general counsel's office just to make sure, or also connect with one of the grant managers, again, to test for using marijuana. That's prohibited right now.
Absolutely.
On campus, I'm sorry, we were doing in the police, so they already bringing subjects, and they are looking at medical part of it. And I said, I'm going to bring my driving simulator, and we test. We did once just for them, but I wrote it in the grant, and they said, no, we can't have such a grant.
I think that's it. Thanks, Don, for that clarification. But it goes to the point of partnering. The fact of the matter, and the reality that I'm dealing with impairment out there on the road, and I'm dealing with CMV drivers, and we certainly don't want to violate any grant and break certainly any laws. But these are just emerging issues, and these are things that we have a zero tolerance in CMV driving. Zero tolerance. That's our standard. But to say you have zero tolerance and to say that you have a driver shortage, and these are just issues that are compounding that you and it stays in the system for much longer. We have to get to the other side of those challenges and those issues. And that's just reality, right? That's just the reality. I got 60,000 people in my drug and alcohol clearinghouse that's tested positive. 60,000 drivers, okay? So that's a reality that you have to deal with. Now, is all those drivers stoned? I don't think so. In fact, I doubt it. But are they users? And should they be exempt? And I'm more liberal. I admit I'm more liberal than probably some of my law enforcement colleagues. But I do stay in the world of reality too.
Well, I will let you know with the states legalizing marijuana, this is becoming a problem again. And, you know, when we go out and we have our kickoff meetings with universities, we even let them know that, you know, this applies to even if you have an outdoor research laboratory that might be located 15 miles away, the mere fact that it's being funded from federal grants, federal funding, this poses a problem. So, you know, Colorado in particular, when I went out there, I was very concerned because I know, you know, the state, from what I'm hearing, it's open, it's, you know, widely used, you know, throughout the states. Their vehicular accidents have increased as a result of this, from my understanding. But, you know, I made sure when I was meeting with this university, I was reinforcing, you know, the notion that, you know, this could cause problems with their grant, even though they weren't even researching this area. Their grant was focused on infrastructure, but I wanted to let them know because of the legalization piece of it going around.
Sorry to remind attendees, if you have any questions, please put it on the Q&A and I will read the questions. Thank you. Okay. So
I didn't touch on the technology transfer piece. That was another part of your question. I did want to hone in on within the UTC program, we folded in and further enhanced technology transfer. And I'm going to refer again back to the FAST Act grant competition, where in subsequent competitions in 2018 and 2020, where we had each applicant or each grantee, once they were selected, to submit their technology transfer plan. And this was a requirement underneath the governing documents at the time. Again, you know, what we're trying to do is those research outputs that the universities are creating, you know, these could be widgets, gadgets, new processes, procedures, or practices, or software, or training methods. We want to make sure that this gets rolled out into the field, or the end user, which could be, you know, the state DOT or a private sector company, will be able to take that and implement it. Some of the universities that we have, they are some of the research outputs, they are patenting these outputs, and then they're also spinning them off into businesses, small businesses. So this is why we have partnered with the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, because this is the exact thing that we want the universities to do, because in turn, this is also creating jobs within that community and entrepreneurship opportunities.
anybody else want to add to it? I have a question in here. Thank you for the great webinar. Would you please ask the panelists to share their ideas and experiences regarding the importance of continual personal and career development and the importance of finding a good mentor? It might be helpful to the students.
Wow.
Great question.
That's a great question. I believe personal and career development is one of the most important things a student can do. You don't stop learning just because you finish your academic study. I can just tell you, I've been with USDOT for 35 years. And after I graduated A&T, and continue graduate with Morgan, I like to say I continue to stretch myself and taking courses, continuing education courses, executive leadership courses that I think better prepare me for that. And one of the reasons why I did that is I've been truly blessed to have several mentors in my career that led me down that path and guided me down that path. My first mentor in Federal Highway was one of the first Black, if not the first Black senior executive service member, Mr. Eugene Cleckley. And the key to picking a good mentor is not necessarily picking your friend, or picking somebody that you can have a positive relationship with you, but don't mind straightening you out and challenging you and stretching you. And Mr. Cleckley certainly did that to me, and really instill a work ethic of excellence in whatever I do. And then I transitioned to Miss Linda Brown, who was a Morgan graduate as well, working for Federal Highway in the Office of Civil Rights. And I saw excellence personified firsthand. And she gave me opportunities to work as a special assistant to the deputy administrator of Federal Highway, Miss Gloria Jeff, at one time. And Miss Jeff, we was working on something directly for Rodney Slater with the National Urban League, and just that exposure to how things are done at that very senior level really benefited me throughout my career. And because of that, I've stretched myself to go to Harvard and take executive education at Harvard, take executive leadership at Duke University, where it helped me define what my leadership style is going to be. And I just encourage everyone to come up throughout their career, to come up with their own, I call it your own personal constitution. What are the things that you believe in? And what are the things that you are willing to do? One of my mentors, Federal Highway, again, division administrator, used to say, do the right thing and accept the consequences. And that's part of your personal dilemma, because throughout an individual career, they're going to come up with these moral dilemmas that having a personal constitution will help guide you to make the right decision. And that right decision may come with some consequences, but it's the right decision to do. And you can overcome that instead of making a wrong decision. And then I had a colleague within motor carriers who really showed me how to be innovative and creative, and understand that you don't advance a organization without coming up with that particular vision. And I find it refreshing that you use the term edge, and I use edge too. Edge for me in my office is evolving constantly. We have to evolve, we have to change, we have to grow. Our environment is changing, our leadership change, so you have to know you have to change. The D in the edge that I use for my office is called deliver results. We have to differentiate between ferocious activity sometimes and results. And so I make sure we are focused on crash reduction. You can go to all the meetings you want to go, but when you come to me, I want to see where those numbers are going down. All that is great. And I understand effort, but effort is important, but let's not take our eye off the prize. And our prize is a very noble one. We're talking about saving lives. The G is grow together. We have to learn and grow and expand our network, expand our knowledge base, expand our own personal as well as organizational development So that's what the G in EDGE mean. And lastly, because we deal with law enforcement, because we enforce the regulations, fine companies, unfortunately put companies out of business, and we deal closely with our law enforcement state partners. In this day and time, it's about embracing integrity. We have to do the right thing. And so when you, Dr. Jahani, talked about EDGE, I said that's Morgan is right on top of it. And so these are some things that I believe having a mentor, continually learning and developing yourself, not only personal, but career, is critical. It's critical to success. It's the difference between staff work, management, and leadership. And as the students progress in their career, they need to excel, I think, in all three. But you have to know the difference between staff, management, and finally leadership. And leadership to me is, I'm going to tell my staff the destination. That's where I want you to go. My managers need to plot the way to get there. And the staff need to execute.
I just wanted to add a few things to that, and that's a great question. I just wanted to tell you that career development is the best investment you can make in your life, no matter what it is, your career. I think I mentioned before that my degree was in physics and chemistry, but after I finished, I said I needed something else because I wanted to get into management, and I said, well, I went back to school and did an MBA with in management. And at the end of my MBA, I said, I think I need to learn more about accounting and finance, because if I get to the management side, when I get a budget, I need to manage, or a CPA is going to be sending information to me. I want to make sure that I understand what they're trying to say. So I want to have another degree in accounting as well. And after that, when I become part of the federal government, I've been taking trainings as much as I can. So professional development is critical for the success in you. In terms of mentorship opportunities, I think Taft already mentioned that he had several mentors in his career. I wouldn't be here right now if I didn't have a few mentors in my life, in my career, that helped me to get to where I am right now. I'm pretty sure Don has the same experience. And if you're interested in to get into federal government, tap into any of these people that you see here, or go to the agencies that you know more and tap into some of those federal executives. We're always looking to help students to become part of the federal workforce. So always love the opportunity to mentor students for HBCUs and MSIs specifically. And another area that I wanted to talk to you a little bit is about entrepreneurship. Schools teach us on how to work for another company, but unfortunately, not many schools teach you how to become an entrepreneur. So at DOT and OSDBU, we're creating a pathways to entrepreneurship program that we want to help students, specifically more from HBCUs, on how to become entrepreneurs. So if you want to know more about that program, please feel free to reach out to me after this session. Donna, you want to add something else?
Well, I was going to let Carol speak first, because
Okay.
Carol.
Sure, thank you, Don. Definitely a big question, and I think everyone's going to give you a little bit of a different answer. But the idea, so let's start with a few things. So the multiple mentor thing, there's this belief, I think, when you're in college that you just need one mentor and that person will tell you everything. That's absolutely not true. Find the mentors that enhance what you can do. So if you're a shy person, try to find someone who helps you talk outside of your box. But that person doesn't necessarily need to be the subject matter expert that you're also trying to learn from. So try to see if there are multiple mentors. And again, they don't all have to happen at the same time. You don't have to meet with them every month. You can meet with them every 6 months, or you can choose whenever that makes sense. That's another sort of myth, like you don't have to meet every day. And then it'll change over time, and make sure that you recognize when, I'm going to say, that mentor has, done their duty. and you need to keep moving. So just don't feel like it's an insult to them. Like you will always remember them. They will always be part of your life, but just feel like, remember that you have to keep going. But there is a point where you will have to make a decision, especially if you're sort of at this engineering and planning and sort of thing, where you either become the subject matter expert and that is your career and you're going to be excellent at that. Or like a lot of the folks on the call today, you become a leader in whatever you're doing. And it'll kind of come naturally, like it'll be organic. You'll be doing stuff and you're like, I think I'm going to go do this now. And then it just makes sense and you go forward with it. But be open to those opportunities, because if you think just coming into a job like I'm going to be the division chief and that's it, you're going to miss out on all these opportunities of possibly being deputy in another area or becoming the director of something else. So just keep an open mind when you're thinking of your career and how to grow within that career. And then the do what's right and the moral code, so important. You start learning that a little bit later, but just it'll set so many pieces into the future of what you're going to be able to accomplish. And I remember one of my mentors said, never burn a bridge, because you never know when that person is going to become your boss. It has happened. I'm not that far into my career. I'm like about 10, 12 years into it. At least 3 or 4 times where, someone was at my level and, I have good relationships, that's great, but then they become my boss. So you do not want to cause that friction. I mean, obviously, if they're a horrible person, you probably don't want to talk to them too much, but generally speaking, you doing what's right is going to leapfrog you across people who are just doing it because they want it to succeed or they want their thing to work. And it'll make you a leader before you become one of those titles. Whatever the title is, deputy, director, whatever, you will be a leader if you just do what's right. People will recognize it. People will follow you. It'll be, how you make your career. So don't try for the title, just build that moral code. I love that mentality that Taft just said, like, do that. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say, I don't have a personal constitution that Taft has. I admire Taft for that one. But one thing that I live by is when you cease to be challenged, you stop growing. I don't know where I got this quote from, but I have been living by it day by day since the early part of my career. And I'm constantly trying to challenge myself to do things, to grow, develop. Continuing education. When I started out, my undergraduate and graduate study is in transportation. And I was like, wow, I've really narrowed myself. So I wanted to open up my background a little bit more. That's why I went ahead and went to law school. And I utilized that law background in the everyday work that I'm doing as I'm dealing with the grants and the grants portfolio that I manage. Also, leadership programs. There are a few leadership programs that I've been able to participate in. One is the Department of Transportation's leadership program that I participated in back in the early 2000s. Also, you have the African American Federal Executive Association. They have a leadership program that I've been able to participate in as well. And those programs have been beneficial where you are assigned a mentor to help you grow and develop and navigate your path. So, I know in essence of time, I just wanted to make those additional points as well.
Great points, thank you. In the chat, thank you all for sharing your valuable experience regarding the mentorship. Okay, we are almost at the end of the program. If you want to conclude or if you have any last word of wisdoms, we are all ears.
Dr. Gianni, thank you the opportunity for this session. There are a couple of things I want to say. Please stay in touch with us. We are in the next couple of months and year, many initiatives that are going to come up from DOT that want to make sure that HBCUs are prepared and they are ready and they stay ready to compete for those opportunities. So there's a group of professionals on the federal level and DOT that we're very committed to ensure HBCUs have an opportunity to compete in grants and federal contracts. So stay in touch. We have many capacity building activities throughout the year that we're very grateful to all of you. So I look forward to continue the dialogue and the conversation with all of you. Thank you for the opportunity again.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank Dr. Jahani, and I wanted to thank all the panelists. I enjoyed this session and I enjoyed the input. I learned a lot from each one of you all. I did put in the chat websites that you could reference with regards to the bipartisan infrastructure law. There's webinars on there that you could go to view, to see what each mode of transportation is doing. Taft gave you a taste of what FMCSA is interested in. We have the Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Transit, Federal Highway, the Maritime Administration. So please go in and look to see how these funds are going to get managed, distributed, in the priority areas as well. The White House has a guidebook that they recently released that I'm pretty sure that I included in this. If I didn't, I will definitely add it in. And also, I will add in my email address if you have any questions with regards to any of the upcoming opportunities, the grant opportunities within the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn?
Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Jahani, for that, for having us all. I echo John's comments that I love being on a panel where I learn something. So again, thank you to the panelists too for being here. My last thought, I guess, stay resilient into your career. You will fail multiple times, and the ones that I've seen succeed are the ones who get back up and keep moving along. They don't hold a grudge. They don't, they just keep going. And those people who are resilient and who have initiative, they're the ones who succeed. So just keep that in mind as you keep trucking along.
Well, thank you for that segue, Carolyn, about trucking along. I just like to say, one of the enjoyment that I get is when I'm able to go back and speak to students, the next generation of transportation professionals. And I say this, transportation is truly an interdisciplinary profession. No matter what your students' academic discipline is, there's a potential career in transportation for them. And we have to make sure while we in the engineering department or transportation department, but we have to reach out to our criminal justice majors. We have to reach out to our architect. We have to reach out to other disciplines to know that there are successful careers in transportation for them, and encourage them to look at the Department of Transportation as an employer of choice. I can speak for my colleagues. I think at the USDOT is that it's been a great employer, and that there are opportunities for the next generation to come and join us. And I just want to thank you for the work that you do at Morgan and the faculty there at Morgan to put an event on such as this. You can always count on me again.
Thank you very much. The great panel. I learned a lot today, and it was both sessions were really great. And I hope the audience enjoyed as much as I did. And I thank each of you, and we will be in touch. And we always be in touch with you and make sure that we work out together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.